All right, let's talk about AI. It's completely reshaping how we work, right? But a lot of the time, it's happening in ways we don't even see. So today, we're going to pull back that curtain and look at the huge and often hidden ethical risks of AI in the workplace.
So let's just start with a question that gets right to the heart of it. Could an algorithm, a piece of software, actually get you fired? Or, for that matter, decide you don't even get hired in the first place? It really sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but believe me, it's happening right now, and it's something we all need to get our heads around.
And look, this isn't some far-off theory. This is a real-world story. A massive, top-tier company built this fancy AI tool to screen resumes. The goal? To find the absolute best candidates. But here's what happened. The AI looked at a decade's worth of the company's own hiring data, and it taught itself that male candidates were better. Why? Because the human hiring decisions of the past were biased. They just scrapped the whole thing. It's the perfect and kind of scary example of how fast a well-meaning AI can just soak up our worst habits.
And that story really sets the stage for our first big point. In today's business world, getting AI ethics right isn't just a nice idea or a nice to have. Nope, it's an absolute imperative. Because, the stakes are just incredibly high. When an AI system goes wrong, it's not just a bad headline for a day. It can completely destroy trust with your employees, open the door to huge legal battles, and cause permanent damage to a company's reputation. Let's be clear, this is a risk that no business can afford to just ignore. Okay, so what are we actually talking about here? What are these risks? Let's break down the 5 major ethical minefields that pretty much every organization has to navigate when they start bringing AI into the workplace.
We're going to dive into these 5 big ones: bias, privacy, transparency, fairness, and inclusiveness. You can think of each one as a potential disaster waiting to happen if it's not handled with extreme care.
First up, let's talk about algorithmic bias. We saw this in that recruiting tool example, right? AI systems learn from whatever data we feed them. So if our data is biased, the AI just becomes a super efficient machine for making that bias even worse, and at scale. Imagine a system that learns to automatically reject anyone from a certain zip code, not based on their skills, but just because of flawed data from the past. The key thing to get here is that the algorithm itself isn't evil. It's just a mirror reflecting the biases that are already out there in our data and in our society.
The second huge challenge is privacy. Think about it. These AI systems need tons of data to learn, and often that's sensitive employee data. This makes them a giant, glowing target for hackers. And this threat is only getting bigger. A shocking 85% of cybersecurity leaders are saying they're seeing a rise in cyber attacks, partly because the bad guys are using AI now too. So protecting this data isn't just an IT problem, it's a fundamental ethical responsibility. Then you have the transparency problem. A lot of AI systems are what we call black boxes. We can see the data that goes in, and we can see the decision that comes out, but we have no idea what logic happened in the middle. Here's a great way to think about it. It's like a manager telling you that you didn't get a promotion, but refusing to explain why. How can you possibly trust that decision? How could you ever appeal it if you think it's wrong? This lack of clarity is a massive barrier to building any real trust.
And this is where that lack of transparency gets really scary. We have to consider the massive impact AI is going to have on jobs. The World Economic Forum estimates that AI could displace as many as 85 million jobs by 2025. That is a staggering number. So the ethical question becomes one of fairness. How are companies going to manage the shift? Are they going to invest in retraining their people? Or are they just going to replace them? And this also touches on our last challenge, inclusiveness. Are the new jobs and tools being created by AI actually accessible to everyone, including people with disabilities?
Now, these are some huge, complicated challenges. But here's the good news. We're not trying to figure this out in a vacuum. A global rulebook is starting to take shape, with principles and even laws being created to guide us toward building more ethical AI. You've got big international bodies like UNESCO and the OECD really leading this charge. They're establishing these core principles that are starting to influence policy all over the world. And a clear consensus is forming around 3 key ideas. AI has to be fair, it has to be transparent, and maybe most importantly, it absolutely must be human-centric. It should be here to help us, not to undermine us.
And these aren't just suggestions, they're becoming actual laws. The EU's AI Act is a perfect example. It's a landmark piece of legislation that creates a risk-based pyramid for regulating AI. Let's break it down. At the top, you have unacceptable risks, things like using emotion recognition in a job interview. Those are just banned outright. Then you have high-risk tools, like AI for hiring, which will face really strict rules and safeguards. As you go down the pyramid, the rules get lighter.
It's a really smart, pragmatic approach that protects people without killing innovation.
So, while the EU is writing this comprehensive rule book, other places are taking a different approach. In the US and the UK, it's more of a patchwork. They're using existing laws and then adding new guidance for specific industries. For instance, New York City now requires companies to get their AI hiring tools independently audited for bias. But the trend, no matter where you look, is pointing in the same direction. Accountability is coming.
Okay, so we've got these rules starting to emerge, but how does a company actually put all this into practice? What do you do on Monday morning? Well, it really comes down to a clear 5-step action plan.
It really boils down to these 5 crucial moves. 1. Set up clear governance. That means having an ethics committee, someone in charge. 2. Mandate human oversight. A human has to be in the loop for big decisions, period. 3. Audit for bias, always. This needs to be a standard, non-negotiable step. 4. Lock down your data and protect privacy. And 5. Demand transparency from the AI systems and vendors that you use.
And of all those steps, this one right here might just be the most important: ensuring meaningful human review. For any decision that truly impacts a person's life, we're talking hiring, firing, promotions, the AI can be a co-pilot. It can give you data, it can offer insights, but a human being must be in the driver's seat, ready to make the final call and take full responsibility for it.
And this brings us to the final and maybe the most important piece of this entire puzzle: the role that every single one of us plays in shaping this future. Because at the end of the day, it all comes down to this simple idea. We can talk all we want about data and algorithms and models, but we can never, ever forget that behind every single one of those automated decisions is a real person. A person whose life and career and well-being are on the line.
And so that leaves us with this final thought to chew on. People often say that AI is a mirror. It learns from our data, it learns from our behaviors, our choices, our biases. So the ultimate question really isn't about the technology itself, it's about us. What values are we choosing to build into these powerful systems? When we look into that mirror, what kind of society will our AI reflect back at us? That is the challenge and the opportunity for all of us.